Hello, YouTube world. This is Jack Madrox here. And now, okay, so a while back, after I watched the Money in the Bank 2017 pay-per-view, WWE, that I quit doing wrestling reviews because I was just, I was tired of it, I was tired of the bullcrap. That pay-per-view was absolutely god-awful, and I hated it. I hated it with everything in my soul. Like, I just hated it. It was terrible. It was garbage. Just one of the worst things I've ever seen. So, I've been checking out, other wrestling promotions and whatnot, but it's really tough to get into it. And, because at heart, I am a wrestling fan at the end of the day. I am a wrestling fan. I've always been a fan of wrestling. I've always enjoyed watching it. But I just don't like what's coming out nowadays, from anybody, So, okay, so I now have a new subscription to the WWE Network. I have decided that I am going to go back and I'm going to start watching where I began first watching, if that makes any sense. Where I started watching when I was a kid, that's where I'm going to start watching. Like, I'm just going to rewind time and go back, And I thought to myself, you know what, that is a great idea, Why don't I, do make some episodes of this for my YouTube channel? Why not, And, with the WWE Network, you can, I could go back as far as the very first Raw, but that's not when I started watching. I started watching when I was about 12 years old, and when I was 12 years old, it was 1998. And I remember I started watching right around the time that Mike Tyson came in to the whole Stone Cold Steve Austin and Degeneration X rivalry. And so that's where I began. But I can't exactly pinpoint when that happened because I wasn't watching it at the time when Stone Cold came out and flipped off Mike Tyson. I didn't watch it. I didn't watch that episode, I don't think. So the best thing I could think to do was just start at WrestleMania 14 and watch everything from that point on. Okay? So that's what I did. Last night, I watched WrestleMania 14 in its entirety. And it's not the best WrestleMania, but, it was important. It was a very important WrestleMania for everything to come. The Stone Cold Steve Austin became the World Wrestling Federation champion for the very first time. Kane and The Undertaker had their match where it took The Undertaker 3 tombstone pile drivers to put Kane down for the 1, 2, 3. And even still after the match, Kane was just, he just hadn't had enough yet. They beat The Undertaker down, even after the match was over, And I really miss seeing Kane like that. My God, Kane was a beast back in the day. Not the, not the little wimp he kind of plays now, See, what else was there? There was the mixed gender tag match where Sable kicking Goldust's ass and Luna's ass, And You know what? I didn't write any notes down on that because honestly, last night when I was rewatching that, the idea to do YouTube videos for this did not it did not occur to me, you know. Only tonight when I started watching the Raw after WrestleMania 14 did the idea pop in my head. Hey, I should do, you know, some review videos for old episodes. And at the same time, I can go back to the starting point of when I first became a wrestling fan. Now, like everybody else back in the day, I was kind of like between channels every Monday night. I was watching WWF RAW, Warzone, whatever, and I was watching WCW Nitro. You know, I'd switch back and forth, you know. If I remember correctly, the only thing I really cared about in WCW was Sting. I just wanted to see what he was doing. You know, I think I was mildly intrigued in the NWO. I wanted to see what they were doing. You know, gosh, you know, I mean, I'm trying to get myself to go back that far, you know, and, whew, it's a long time ago, you know, shit, we're talking like 20 years ago, almost, and, it's going to be quite an adventure, but this is where it starts, you know. This video is where it starts. Now, I just got done watching Raw of March 30th, 1998. Okay? And I took notes down and everything. And, okay. And, okay. For some reason, people were real creative with their signs back then, and WWF let them get away with a lot of shit on them signs. And so I'm going to add a little section into these videos where I point out some of what I think are the funniest or most cool, you know, cardboard cutouts that people hold up their signs or whatever. And, okay, so the first one would be simply butt crack. Yeah, I mean, you can see that shit in the beginning of the show where Stone Cold Steve Austin comes out and Vince McMahon, they have their little confrontation, you know. Yeah, you can see it in the back. Someone holding a sign that just plainly says butt crack. And then there's another sign that says Kurgan is my father. That's a bold statement or whatever. And then there was the WWF fans don't have Nielsen boxes. Whatever the hell that was. I don't know. I don't know if that was supposed to be a slight against WWF fans. If the person holding the sign was pro WCW, because you got to remember, this is when the heat between WWF and WCW was going on, and it was just getting fired up, you know. Let me just add it was a very special time to be a wrestling fan. Very special. Okay, oh, yes. And the sign I thought was particularly funny was Great Balls of China. Great Balls of China. Because I remember, I mean, China's dead now, you know, rest in peace, all respect to her. But back in the day, I remember some people were debating on whether or not she was actually a woman, or, you know, if she was actually a man who had a sex change or some shit. A lot of that bullshit. All right. So from, okay, so now the actual Raw, okay. So, like I said, it basically kicks off with Stone Cold Steve Austin and Vince McMahon in the ring. And Vince trying to tell Stone Cold that with Austin's charisma and Vince's something, like his mind or his intelligence or something, whatever, is like that Austin could become the greatest WWF champion of all time. You know, Stone Cold didn't, he didn't really take too well to that, you know, and he's just like, oh, I don't need you, you know, I don't need you, Vince, you know. So, of course, you know, they kind of go back and forth a little bit, and then Vince kind of lays it down for Stone Cold. He's like, well, we can either do this the easy way or the hard way. And and then Stone Cold's like, just give me a couple seconds to think about that, you know. He thinks about it. He thinks about it. Turns around, stuns Vince, you know. And that's what kicks off the show. I believe that was the second time ever that Stone Cold had stunned Vince McMahon, I believe. Okay, and so the first half of this show on March 30th, 1998, the first half of it, wrestling-wise, like match-wise, it sucked. Okay, like, I didn't really, like, you had Kurgan out there, basically squashed some guy who's dressed like a biker. You had fucking Jeff Jarrett coming out with a little light up vest, and he's riding a horse to the ring. And then, yeah, and then this guy, Tennessee Lee. Now, when I saw Tennessee Lee, I was thinking to myself, JBL. I was like, this guy looks like fucking JBL. I was like, wait a minute. JBL jacked the Tennessee gimmick. He fucking jacked it. Because I swear to God, I mean, it just looks way too similar, you know. Maybe he did, maybe he didn't. I don't know. That's all speculation. But you know what? It just kind of sounds like that way. You know, I mean, and it just seems that way. I mean, the gimmicks both look the same. You know, they feel the same. But anyways, yeah, the first half of the show sucked. I didn't really care for it. It was boring, to say the least. It wasn't until, well, basically the whole first half was about Stone Cold and Vince. Okay, Vince calling the cops, telling them that he wants Stone Cold Steve Austin arrested for stunning him in the ring. And that's pretty much what happened. The cops showed up, they raided his locker room, they took him out in cuffs, and they hauled Stone Cold's ass to jail. And, yeah, that's pretty much what happened, you know. And that was basically, I could feel that was the main focus for the first half of the show. Like, all the matches that happened in between that was just to keep the ring warm, pretty much. It was all about what was going on between Stone Cold and Vince. That's what it was about. Though all those other matches were just keeping the ring warm and keeping the fans tided over while that storyline was going down. Okay. So, now, to the more interesting part of the show, which is the second half. This show takes a huge turn from not being so great to being really, really awesome. And it's just like one thing after another. It clicks and it's interesting. And like as I'm watching it, I'm remembering it's like, holy shit, that's why this episode was so great, you know? The first half of it I didn't care for, but like the second half, you know, like Warzone, you know, that shit was just outstanding. It was outstanding. Okay, so first, you know, you got the Rock and Farouk out there. The ever-growing rift between those two, it all finally came to a head that night on March 30th, 1998. The Rock came out acting like he was appreciative of what Farouk did at WrestleMania 14, which is Farouk rushed down to the ring to stop Ken Shamrock to get him to let The Rock's foot go in that ankle lock that he did. And then as soon as he jumped up on the ring apron, he stopped and he walked back. He didn't help The Rock at all. It was like teaching The Rock a lesson. You see, now by WrestleMania 14, The Rock and Farouk were already butting heads, and they weren't getting along. And so you could tell that they were about to break up soon. But it takes a different turn. The Nation of Domination does not break up. They just simply kick Farouk out of the faction. They just kicked him out because after Farouk kind of kicked Rock's ass and Rock was going back up the ramp, Farouk grabs the microphone again with and he says, "Not like that. Get your ass back down here." And then the other three members of the Nation, which was D'Lo Brown, Mark Henry, and the Godfather. I don't think his name was the Godfather yet. I think he was called something else. But anyway, that's how I remember him, as the Godfather. And so they start beating the crap out of Farouk like they're pissed that he wants to continue to, stir the pot with The Rock, And finally they're just like, "Oh, well, screw you, man. We're just going to kick your ass and throw you out of the group." And The Rock stands over Farouk after they're all done kicking the shit out of Farouk, and he's like, "I'm the new leader of the Nation," and blah, 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 So right there, you got a new fucking leader for the Nation of Domination. Right there, The Rock. Great segment. Great segment. I loved it. All right, and then the very next thing that went down was Triple H and China of D-Generation X come out, and Triple H makes his famous "you dropped the ball" statement, which he was addressing Shawn Michaels about the Mike Tyson situation at WrestleMania 14, where they were all convinced that Mike was on their side and not Austin's. And Triple H just kind of, he felt sure that Shawn Michaels had messed up. He had dropped the ball. And that after reassuring Triple H over and over again that Mike Tyson was on their side, and he wasn't. He just kind of felt like Shawn was inadequate or not good enough to be the leader of D-Generation X at that point. So he basically said, "You dropped the ball. Now I'm the leader of D-Generation X." And who does he bring out? He brings out X-Pac. Oh, we all know X-Pac. We all know X-Pac. And, but you know what? Despite his X-Pac's, who he is as a, person, he brought heat to the show. And, man, he brought intensity. I mean, he really did. I think he really brought, he had that kind of punkish feeling to him. And he just, I don't know what it was, but he was perfect for the Attitude Era. X-Pac was perfect for the Attitude Era, in my opinion. And so after X-Pac comes out, he makes his entrance and whatnot in the ring. Oh boy, some shots were fired at WCW and Eric Bischoff. Oh boy, were they ever talking. Now, X-Pac, he mentioned Hulk Hogan, talking about how Hulk Hogan said something about X-Pac, how he's not able to cut the mustard. And it's just like, ooh, shit, he was really dropping names too. There was no fucks given in that when what he was saying. He dropped Hulk Hogan's name. He dropped Eric Bischoff's name. He said World Championship Wrestling, which was WCW. He dropped it all. He was not. He was not going to be censored in anything he wanted to say, because obviously this was his first night back in WWF. He wasn't always XPac. I think he was the 1, 2, 3 kid before, and then he went to WCW, and now he came back to WWF. And man, I just, boy, man, I was like, oh shit, shots fired. That's when the Monday Night Wars were really heating up, you know. And oh yeah, that's right. He also dropped Scott Hall and Kevin Nash's names. He said that says something like Scott Hall and Kevin Nash would be there if they could, but they're being held hostage by WCW. You know, like, I'm guessing contract-wise, you know. A lot of shots fired, and you could even see it on Triple H's face, even back then, that he was a little uncomfortable with what X-Pac was saying. You can kind of see it's like, what did you do? Did you just say another company's name? You know, it's like, I don't know what that was about, but yeah. Anyways, alright, enough on that. And then after that, Val Venis teasers. I don't know if this was the first one or not, but Val Venis is sitting in his bed. He's watching a movie on VHS. You know, it's obviously a porno. As you know, Val Venis, you know, his gimmick was a porn star. And he says he's promoting his new porn movie named Live Hard, if you catch my drift. and I said out loud to myself while watching that, I said, WWE nowadays wouldn't have the balls to do anything like that anymore. No way. They would not. I mean, can you imagine that? WWE nowadays doing that kind of shit? I mean, yeah, I mean, it's kind of smutty, and it's kind of sleazy, but that was the whole point of Val Venis, and it really worked, you know? I mean, and it was funny, you know? It was so sleazy that it was funny, you know? It was like, I don't know how to explain it, but it was just done perfectly, in my opinion. You know? Sable and Luna had a confrontation that night. Because they had that mixed tag match at WrestleMania 14, and Sable basically kicked their ass, and then there's like this ever-growing rift between Sable and Mark Marrow, you know, because Mark Marrow wants to be the spotlight, but everyone cheers for Sable, you know. It is what it is, man. The people like Sable. The people have spoken. Alright. And then shortly after that, Stone Cold Steve Austin uses his one phone call from jail to call Raw, and his phone call is broadcasted over the arena, and he basically tells everyone that he's going to come back next Monday night, and he's going to make Vince's life a living hell and all that stuff. So I'm kind of anxious to watch the next episode. Shortly after that, I noticed while the guys, you know, the refs and whatnot were setting up the cage match, the tag team title cage match that was going to be the main event for this show, that Kane and Paul Bearer came out, and you know, just Kane just looking demonic and creepy as shit. I mean, it's just, I'm just in awe of it. It's like, I think of Kane nowadays, and I just think about how much he's been pussified, you know. He doesn't feel like the same Kane anymore, you know. He doesn't even. I mean, like, I look at that Kane then, I look at the Kane now. I know it's too. I know that, you know, one is a younger guy, one is the current guy, the older guy, but man, I wish I could see that Kane again. You know, Kane, in my opinion, is one of those guys who should never be heard. He should only be seen, because his presence is enough to scare the living shit out of you, and it's enough to make a statement. He doesn't need words, you know? And, I mean, even after he lost to The Undertaker at WrestleMania 14, he still looked like a badass. And, you know, and Paul Bearer, you know, kind of like what Paul Heyman is for Brock Lesnar nowadays. You know, he speaks for his client or whatever, you know. Paul Bearer speaks for Kane, you know. It was a perfect thing, you know. And even though Kane lost the previous night, he still looked like a badass. And I don't know why that doesn't work anymore in wrestling. It just doesn't. But anyways. Alright. Okay, so now the main event was Cactus Jack and Terry Funk, the new tag team champions. They beat the New Age Outlaws at WrestleMania 14 the night before. And this match was a rematch, but it was a cage match. And man, what a fucking way to end the show, you know? What a way to end the show. I mean, it's not the greatest cage match I've ever seen, but man, you know, they wasted no time making it brutal as hell. Like, as soon as Terry Funk got handcuffs put around his neck, and, you know, the handcuffs were strapped to the cage, and he's being choked. You know, it's like, holy shit, dude. It's like, I totally forgot that. I forgot that ever happened. You know, it's just like, whoa. And then, you know, there's basically nothing he could do at that point. He's hanging from the ring by a fucking pair of handcuffs. He's fucking getting choked out. And then, after that, Degeneration X comes out. Triple H, X-Pac in China, and they start beating the hell out of Cactus Jack, you know, Mick Foley, and yeah, and basically they said the New Age Outlaws just joined Degeneration X, and that and you know, the New Age Outlaws ended up winning the match and getting their tag titles back. It's kind of, you know, which is kind of odd because they had just lost them the night before, but, you know, whatever, you know, I mean, the story was intriguing enough, you know, to where I didn't even really care about that, you know. It's just what was happening was just awesome. And so basically, for Raw of March 30th, 1998, basically, we saw Stone Cold Steve Austin get the brand new World Wrestling Federation Championship belt, with the blue strap for the first time. He stuns Vince McMahon for the second time. Vince McMahon has him sent to jail. You know, we have two leaders of two different groups of factions dethroned. Farouk and Shawn Michaels dethroned from their groups. The new leaders, and they're kicked the hell out. And then on top of that, we have new tag team champions too. You know, I mean, it was a hell of a night. Like I said, I didn't really dig the first part of this show. I really didn't. You know, I don't think it was supposed to. You're supposed to be focused on what's going on between Stone Cold and Vince, and all the other matches were just to keep the ring warm, you know, for the show that was going to come ahead. And it was a hell of a show in the second half. It really was. So, yeah, you know what? I'm really feeling this, and I'm gonna watch the very next Raw that comes after this one. I'm just gonna keep this going. I'm gonna find out. Maybe through these videos, I'll figure out when and where I became disenchanted with wrestling. Maybe try to pinpoint the moment I quit watching. You know, I quit watching the first time. I could have swore it was sometime in 2005-ish, I believe, somewhere around there. I'm not entirely sure. And then I started watching it again in about 2013, and then now I am where I am with it now. Where I'm not watching it again. But I think this will be good. This will be good. I look forward to making more videos and posting more reviews of old wrestling stuff and pay-per-views and shows. And I hope you guys enjoy it too and can get into it. Alright, this is Jack Madrox. Till next time, stay spooky.